Assalamu alaikum, hello guys, this is Sana Kol. Welcome back to my channel and this is
Rania Mania.
अच्छा लास्ट टाइम मैंने एक बच्चों का नॉवल रीड किया था मून रैबिट एंड माय डॉटर लव्ड इट. वाज इट अ गुड सरप्राइज रानिया?
So good.
Okay, so now I decided that why not I read about Egypt and pyramids, because lately she has developed this interest of knowing what Egypt is, where it is, why pyramids were built and what were the kings of the Egypt called. So let's begin. Are you excited for this book?
Yes.
Okay, great. Egypt is mostly sandy desert where nothing grows. The ancient Egyptians settled on the banks of the river Nile where there was plenty of water but them for themselves and for their crops. The Egyptians usually built tombs for their dead kings on the river's western bank where the sun sets. They believed that the kings went to meet the sun god when they died, because we all know that Egyptians were really superstitious, so they had this belief that if they are going to bury their kings on the western sides of the bank जिधर sun rise करता था, जहाँ sun set करता था, so they are, after their death, the spirits of their bodies are going to depart from their bodies and they are going to meet the god sun. Okay, now the question is, why were the Egyptians great? The Egyptians were so good at farming that they became very rich. They built fantastic temples for their gods and huge pointed tubes called pyramids where they buried their kings. They had armies and ships and courts of law. Their priests studied the stars and their craftspeople made beautiful things from gold and silver. Now the next question is, Rania, who ruled Egypt? The king of Egypt was called the pharaoh. The Egyptians believed that the sun god Re was the first king of Egypt and that all the pharaohs after him were his relatives. This made the pharaoh very holy and very powerful. The people thought he was a god on earth. Now, अब जैसे मेरे जैसा बंदा होगा वो ये क्वेश्चन ज़रूर करेगा that could a woman be a pharaoh? Although very few women ruled Egypt, there was a famous pharaoh called Hatshepsut. When her 6-year-old nephew came to the throne, Hatshepsut was called to rule Egypt for him just until he was a little bit older. But Hatshepsut liked ruling so much that she wouldn't let her nephew take over. That's the greedful part. He didn't get the chance to rule until he was 30 years old. When she was a pharaoh, now this is an interesting part. When she was a pharaoh, Hatshepsut had to wear the badges of royalty. These included a false beard made of real hair. So this is the picture, that even though she was a woman pharaoh, but still she had to wear this false beard. Now, Rania Mania, your favorite. Why did the Egyptians bury their mummies?
I like mummies.
I know, baby girl. A mummy is a dead body which has been dried out so it lasts for thousands of years. The Egyptians believed that the dead traveled to another world where they needed their bodies and they didn't want any bits missing. So what did they do? The mummies was placed inside a series of wooden coffins. These were put in a big stone called a sarcophagus. Some poorer families had their nearest and dearest mummified, but it was an expensive business. Only the rich could afford a really good send-off. Now, this is what I also studied when I was a little girl, that why were mummies brainless? Like, why didn't the mummies have a brain? The ancient Egyptians believed that the heart was the most important part of the body. They thought that the brain was useless. So when they were preparing a mummy, they took out the brain by pulling it out through the nose.
Wow.
Yes, they used to pull out their brain out of the nose. Why were mummies wrapped in bandages? Wrapping the dead body helped to keep its shape. After the insides were removed, the body was dried out for 40 days in salty stuff called natron. Then it was washed, rubbed with ointments and tightly bandaged, Rania Mania.
Oh, pyramid.
Yes! Why were the pyramids built, you guys?
Guys, I like pyramids.
Okay, now this is the question. Sorry, मैं थक गई थी बैठ के. Pharaohs were buried with all their finest clothes and jewelry, so tombs were given sneaky traps to catch out robbers. The pyramids were huge tombs for dead pharaohs. No one knows exactly why the pyramids were shaped this way. हम सबको पता है ना that they are triangular. Some people think that they were built to point towards the sun and stars so that the dead person's spirit could fly to heaven like a rocket. The Great Pyramid at Giza was built about 4,500 years ago. This is what it looks like today. So this is the Great Pyramid at Giza, which was built 4,500 years ago. Now coming to the next part. Now this is my favorite, Rania Mania. Why is paper called paper? This would be interesting because I know ये आपको नहीं पता. Our word paper comes from papyrus, a tall reed that grows inside the Nile. The Egyptians discovered how to use the thready insides of the papyrus reeds to make a kind of paper. It was thicker than the paper we use today, but just as useful. So what do we know, guys? That the paper which we use today was firstly discovered and made by the Egyptians, Rania Mania.
Okay.
And it was made by the tall reeds from a plant called papyrus. That is why paper is called paper, because of that tall reed papyrus. Okay. What did Egyptians' writing look like? The first Egyptian writing was made up of rows of pictures called I don't know why I am always unable to pronounce this word. Hieroglyphs. And this language, like Egyptians couldn't talk like the way we talk now. Okay? So their language used all sorts of tools, all sorts of birds' faces, because as I told you earlier, that they were really superstitious and they used to believe in different gods. Like there was a god of sun, there was a god of cat, there was a god of crocodile, dog, and all that. And this language, the scripted language, जो कि अब इजिप्ट में काफ़ी लोगों को पढ़नी भी आ गई है, it is still complicated. Now the last question. How can you become an Egyptianologist? Do you want to become an Egyptianologist?
Yes.
Egyptiologists are people who study ancient Egypt. To become one, you need to learn all about the history of Egypt and the things that have survived from that time. Reading books and visiting museums are the best ways to start. So, where can you come from a face-to-face with a pharaoh? I would love to know this. Egypt's largest museum is in the capital city of Cairo. Here you can gaze at the 4,000-year-old faces of the mummified pharaohs. Not all the pharaohs are here though. Some are still lying peacefully hidden in their best tombs. So you can easily see the mummified pharaohs if you ever plan to visit Cairo. So this was it, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this quick session of reading. Did you like it, Rania Mania?
So good.
It was good?
Yeah.
So that's good. Let's see हम कौन सा next book read करते हैं. Till that time, like I always say, smile and the world will smile with you and for you. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Bye.